budgeting and strategic planning.
We've looked at how the budget is compiled, starting with revenue and then going all the way to the master budget. Now, let's zoom out and look at where budgeting fits into the larger strategic planning process.
The purpose and role of the budget can best be explained in the context of strategic planning. You will save yourself much time and stress during budgeting by building off pieces of planning that have already been done. There are many ways these pieces and the pieces developed during budgeting can fit together. I've heard many times from managers how they hate having to go through more than one round of budgeting. It's like being stuck in traffic and being mad at everyone else for clogging up the road. We are all usually part of the problem. We all want more than capacity allows. In this case, we all want more resources than budget capacity allows. Human dysfunction aside, budgeting is inherently iterative. It takes time to find the best compromise mix of strategies. The right balance of clarity of expectations and aggressiveness of targets can lead to effective budgeting. Strategic planning programs share very similar components, but use different words to describe these components. Here is a summary of how I name and define components and how they fit together. My main goal is not to give a comprehensive background in strategic planning, but to show you how budgeting fits into planning. It starts with what the owners value. The purpose of a company is to serve the value of the owners. I'll pause here to provide context for what I mean by this. As an owner, you must give value to receive value. The owners of a company only receive value when they provide value to customers and employees. Business success lies where everyone gives and receives value. The purpose of your business leads to the vision for your business. Vision is your description of what your company will look like and do in the future. It answers the question, where are we going? This leads to your company's mission. The mission is how the company will achieve its vision. I know that the definitions of mission and vision are often used interchangeably or in different ways. I use the definitions only for clarity in the context of the strategic planning process. Regardless of your definitions, every company needs a plan for where it's going and how it's going to get there. The bottom half of the pyramid provides a detailed plan for answering the big questions of purpose, mission, and vision. You answer the following questions in successive stages of increasing detail. What needs to be done? Who will do it? When will it get done? You start by setting your company's priorities for the next 3 years. You then define what goals you'll accomplish next year. Your annual goals are broken down into quarterly objectives. Finally, you list out the projects and tasks needed to achieve those objectives. Quarterly objectives may be set using a system like objectives and key results. Tasks can be managed by a wide variety of project planning systems. In strategic planning, you decide your assumptions and the actions based on those assumptions. Assumptions you make in strategic planning are needed to set key budgeting assumptions. Some examples are: economic conditions determine the size of the market and customers' ability to pay. These impact sales. New products or services you think competitors will release will change what products or services you prioritize for release. You may see opportunities to raise prices. Inflation can cause big increases in funding and staffing costs. Assumptions are crucial to your strategy. You must change your strategy when the assumptions of your strategy are no longer valid. Many KPIs monitor the performance of the implementation of strategy, but you must also monitor metrics that measure the validity of your strategic assumptions. Another way to prepare for budgeting is to ask, what decisions will I need to make in the budget? Budgeting is a form of analysis, and the purpose of analysis is to make good decisions. Build a list of these questions and data to help answer them throughout the year. Aspects of strategic planning, like competitive landscape and economic conditions, will appear more relevant when you can already anticipate the tactical implications of your budget questions. Your budget questions also inform what you should research in the economy or with your competitors. Here is a list of the major sections of the budget and their key assumptions, variables, or components. You may have strategies and ideas that will likely need to be budgeted for. In the busyness of today, it's tempting to think you'll push that analysis and decision until the budgeting process. The problem is that many decisions get delayed like that and then get rushed in the crush of budgeting season. You can build the budget for some items, for example, new locations, new products, new IT, with the best information you have months before budget season. You can then tighten down those assumptions in the budgeting process. Budgeting usually occurs when longer term priorities, in other words, 3 year strategic priorities, are translated into 1 year goals. The focus on 3 year strategic priorities is to identify the long term strategies that will create value. It entails a lot of scenario analysis and forecasting to assess profitability. At this stage, you are not prioritizing them or coordinating their implementation with each other and company operations. You may create broad implementation plans, but not detailed project plans with deadlines, detailed costs, etc. Budgeting is part of the process of defining your 1 year goals. One of the first steps of moving from the 3 year priorities phase to the 1 year phase is deciding which items you will do in the next year and which will be in future years. Some priorities are multi year plans, so you're deciding which parts of those plans will occur in the next year. Once again, it's an iterative process. You'll identify an initial set of projects for implementation in the next year. As you put the budget together, you'll discover whether you have the time and money to implement them. You may need to push some projects into future years. You may find that you can add more projects. Once you decide which projects are added, you plan them out in more operational and financial detail. That financial detail is layered into the budget. The top portion of the planning pyramid defines the long term strategies of the company. Potential strategies are prioritized both by how soon they will be implemented and by their potential effectiveness. All that planning is crucially important to the efficiency and effectiveness of budgeting. If you try to create a budget, especially with a group of people, you'll be forced to go back and answer these strategic planning questions. Strategic planning is also not a linear process that occurs once a year or every few years. The business environment is constantly changing. These changes modify the accuracy of the plan's assumptions, add clarity to the probability of success of strategies, and introduce new challenges and opportunities. Significant updates to our understanding of the business environment should lead to ad hoc analysis to update past strategic analyses and create new analyses. It may not shock you to learn that I'm naturally analytical. By habit, I fire up a workbook or dive into data analysis software. Others may tweak models they carry in their minds. Regardless of the method, strategic plans evolve. Budgeting forces these analyses, strategies, and conceptual models into a coherent and integrated whole. It puts money where our mouths and minds are. I say this in the plural because the group must come to a consensus budget from their various perspectives of the business. This is how a budget can enhance clarity, coordination, and communication. One way to think about going from strategy to a budget is by asking 3 questions. Strategy: what will we do to create value? 1 year goals: what will we do next year to create that value? Budget: what are the financial implications of our 1 year goals? Developing strategic plans and ad hoc analysis outside of the budgeting process has very practical implications for surviving budget season. Strategic planning is usually done with a fairly small group of people. Ad hoc analysis also involves smaller groups of people. Budgeting likely takes many people in the company. They may be asked to do more financial analysis than they do any other time of the year. You can only fit a limited number of decisions in the window of time you set for budgeting. Good strategic planning and ad hoc analysis creates large blocks of strategic analysis from which to build the budget. This frees up more time for all the other analyses inherent in the budget process. When I was in public accounting, the busy season was the start of the year when audits and tax returns for the past year needed to be completed. In industry, it was budget season. This was the busiest time for financial analysis in the year. The finance and accounting departments were completely consumed by it. It also took up lots of time for managers throughout the company. It's not just time, but energy, because tough decisions are made in difficult meetings. In public accounting, the goal is to move as much work as possible from busy season to interim work earlier in the year. The goal is the same in budgeting. What can you move earlier in the year? One way to decide is to ask as early as possible what decisions need to be made to compile the budget. Then ask, what analysis needs to be done to make those decisions? What is the earliest we can do most of that analysis? Take this one step further back and ask, what info will I need to do that analysis? Do I have that information or do I need to develop it? Examples of information you may need include variable and marginal costs, marginal revenue, capacity analysis, and cost to increase capacity. There is a technical difference between a forecast and a projection. According to the AICPA, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, a forecast is based on the responsible party's assumptions reflecting the conditions it expects to exist and the course of action it expects to take. A projection is sometimes prepared to present one or more hypothetical courses of action for evaluation. In other words, we are making projections when we're looking at potential scenarios. Once we decide on a most likely projection, we have a forecast. A budget is usually a forecast that is extensively developed and documented. These three types of analysis can inform each other. While preparing for this course, I read one article that said to start with your budget and then develop forecasts.